it's a blessing and a curse for me. I'll put it that way, because instead of like, now that I know that that's what's wrong with me, I can manage it and I can take care of it, and I have to do it for the rest of my life. But that keeps me in an area of fitness that I wouldn't have been if I wasn't paying attention to my life. Hey everyone, I'm Kyle Whisner, driver of the number 53 GMR NASCAR Craftsman truck, and we're here on the Derek Perniciglio Show.
Get out, drive you!
Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Derek Perniciglio Show. I'm Chris Economaki. Just kidding. No, everyone knows who I am, but of course we are focused on the guest, and we have with us Kyle Whisner, a West Coast racer, actually one of our first West Coast racers that we've ever had on the show. Going to make his Truck Series debut this weekend in North Wilkesboro. Thank you for joining us in the studio.
Thank you for having me. Everybody knows who you are. Whenever I drop your name, everybody watches the show. So, be proud of saying Derek Perniciglio instead of Chris Economaki, because you're just as great as he is. But thank you for having me.
It's some big shoes to fill, but I appreciate the kind words. But yeah, we definitely appreciate you coming in here. You just came right from working on the truck too. You crawled out from under the truck and came right to the studio, right?
Yep, I can't miss the opportunity, so that's why I got here. But yeah, we're trying to get everything ready. The deal kind of came together pretty short notice, and we're at that final stages of it, but got a whole group of people thrashing on it right now, so I was able to break away and come down, because this is just as big an opportunity to be able to sit here with you and tell stories and talk about motorsports.
Yeah, and then we'll also get a chance to plug your sponsors and the new team you're driving for, which I think is also really surprising, because everything for you is new. Like, it is a new team, it's a new truck, it's a new sponsor, it's a new driver, you've never raced at North Wilkesboro before, you never raced a truck before, so there's so many firsts that are going to happen this weekend. What is the biggest thing that you hope happens?
So at the end of the day, this whole deal is about giving to charity. We have Victory Junction on the hood, and I was able to get Park West Gallery, which is the world's largest by volume gallery. You see them on all the cruise ships. They sell beautiful paintings, and they have come aboard, and they gave us enough money to be able to get some tires, make race entry, things like that. And we also got Low Country Coin, which is like a gold coin distributor or company. So like, if you're looking for those rare vintage coins, you can go to Low Country Coins and check that stuff out. They're the ones who made all of this stuff happen, but because it was for Victory Junction, Park West came aboard, and what they offered past that sponsorship was auctioning off the paintings that are associated with the truck. So on the back of the truck this round, we've got a world-renowned fine artist named Tim Yankee. He does a lot of Americana-style paintings, so there's a big, beautiful American flag on the bed of the truck. And so that painting will be auctioned off, and all proceeds will go to Victory Junction after that. Now, these are paintings that, depending on the size of them, go, 30, 40, 50, $150,000, $200,000.
Wow.
And so...
For paintings.
For paintings.
I got into the wrong business.
Well, it's an investment for people, right?
Yeah.
Because they appreciate over time. And there's very limited versions of them, right? And so, like, if you own that one, it's going to be worth more as time progresses. So it's a big deal for Victory Junction. And for people who don't know about Victory Junction, it's a camp for seriously ill children. So they get a chance to go out, spend a week at camp, go fishing, and they have wheelchair accessible bowling alleys, and they got a theater in there. It's a NASCAR theme park, pretty much. Big, beautiful buildings in Randleman.
Right. All built by Kyle Petty and the Petty family. Remember, it was Adam Petty's dream to have something like this camp for disabled kids or terminally ill kids too.
Yes. Yeah. So it's an amazing thing of what they're doing there, because I went to another charity event that had to do with cancer, like City of Hope, and I was sitting there listening to a doctor talk about what it is that is the leading cause of children not getting through their cancer and getting to remission, and it's isolation. It's being away from all of their friends and all of their family while they're going through the treatment. And that right there is what Victory Junction is doing for these kids. And we go out there and we'll burn rubber in the car and do mock pit stops and things like that. The joy that comes from living life, it's one of the best medicines that you can give someone. And it's amazing the perspective that you get from it too, because with anything that's going on in my life, and life is hard and we all have to live it, right? When you see what they're going through and the maturity that they have at such a young age on how to navigate it, it really changes your perspective on what's wrong in your life in comparison to what's going on with theirs. So I really, to answer your question, in order to what would be the best outcome, making sure all of that it happens in the way that it needs to happen. I'm a racer. I love to race. Getting out there and qualifying into the show and setting the world on fire would be awesome, but that's, as I've gotten older, I realized that's not what everything is about.
Mm-hmm. So you came out here from the West Coast, lived most of your life out there. What kind of racing did you do out there when you started?
So got my start in karts. I did that. Well, I should say I got my start in BMX style biking, but when I realized that I couldn't compete with 14-year-olds that had full mustaches, I went to karting. And we didn't come from money, but my dad had a lot of connections and helped a lot of people out in the racing world. And so because of that, we were able to get hand-me-down equipment and things like that. So I learned how to put my stuff together. I didn't win much, but I learned a lot of lessons when it came to racecraft and how to make a car that may not be the best, get whatever speed you can out of it. So I did that for a good while, moved up to like 125 shifter carts and things like that. Wasn't able to do it every weekend, but whenever we had the money to throw together to go do something, we did it. Then when I was 15 and a half, a car owner named Joe Nava, which was good friends with my dad for a very long time.
Is he related to Ron?
I don't know.
I know Ron
Yes,
Nava from
yeah,
the West Coast.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
small world, right?
yeah, right.
Oh my God.
So I'd say on the West Coast, when it comes to like your major car owners, you got like McAnally, and then you got Nava, right? Like Nava definitely doesn't have as big of an organization as that, and he's the little guy in the situation, but he's got a box at Irwindale, and he's been around for so long running the 77 car. Well, he had a chassis sitting there that had been out in the weeds and wasn't getting much use with it, and he said, hey, well, here you go, have this one. If you can build it, we'll make something happen with it. And so that was my first late model. So I built that late model up within about, I think 4.5, 5 years at Orange Show Speedway. I went through all the classes there, late model, finally got up to, limited, then late model, then got up to super lates.
Man, Orange Show is like the Bowman Gray of the West Coast.
You said it.
I've been there before. It is a small, tiny little bull ring.
Yep. So Chocolate Meyer says the same thing, right? And when I heard that for the first time, I was going, like, somebody gets it, right? Yeah. It's we had tire tracks going up the billboards. It's that style of a racetrack. But we branched out from there. Ran Irwindale and the original Bakersfield when I was young, Kern County, El Cajon, Madera, like all the West Coast tracks, the Bull Ring in Vegas. Okay. So
did you race at Mesa Marin before they tore it down?
So yeah, that's the original, the small track.
The original Bakersfield, you mean?
Yeah, the original Bakersfield.
Okay.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
Well, I wasn't racing. I was too young at the time. I was with all of the other guys while they were doing Southwest Tour stuff. To give you an idea, I was so young, I can remember falling asleep on Ron Hornaday Jr.'s fender at the end of the night because it was a warm place to be. So I was snuggled up against this fender. Like that's how much my dad was connected in those worlds. So he had a Grand National car as well because we were about a mile away from Old Riverside Raceway, and so he had
the road course.
The road course. Yep. So he had a Grand National car in the garage, and I've got pictures of me, yay tall, standing in front of it with a Paddington Bear jacket on. But him and Kevin Terrace and all of those guys ran the 42 out there. His connections with all the Grand National peoples got to the point to where I'm named after Kyle Petty and Ronnie Thomas, the 78 Rookie of the Year, which, by the way, he stopped by the shop a couple months back and just told old stories about my dad. And
Ronnie
it was really
Thomas
nice.
did?
Yeah.
No kidding. Did you tell him that you were named after him?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
so I found him. I was listening to a podcast that he was on, and I was like, "This is wow!" Like I didn't know where to find him, who he was. So I went on Facebook and started looking to see where he was at, and all of a sudden this picture pops up of a like 1980s ish race car driver looking guy, and I'm like, I think this is him. So I get on the computer and type in. I say, hey, I don't know if this is a fan page or if it's you, but I just wanted to let you know, and if you can remember, my dad was Ken Whisner, or Wiz as they called him, and he was really good friends with your dad, Jabe. And a little bit of time passed, and he popped out. He's like, hey, what's going on? And like, it's so neat because my dad had passed away in 2007, and so to hear these stories from somebody who was around at the time and all the good that he did in the sport, that it's almost cathartic in a way, you know. So we spent 4.5 hours at the shop just telling old stories about what they used to do. It was really cool.
Yeah, those 4 hours probably went by in about 4 minutes, though, right? Yeah. It's always like that when it's the stories and the things from back in the day. But you moved from the West Coast here on the East Coast, and what is a day like for you? Is it all day in the shop every day, or are you out sponsor hunting? What is it that you guys are, or that you're doing?
So I went from, I was in California. After my dad passed away in 2007, I got a job on a film set. And that was, I got a phone call from a buddy saying, I hear you need some work. And I said, yeah. And so I got a job taking out the trash on a film set. So I was doing that, enjoying the entertainment world. That was about the time I met you when you were out at Irwindale. And then I got picked up making some money doing the Richard Petty driving experience. So I started putting helmets on people, and by the time I was done, I was ride driving and instructing. And then their sister company came in, which was a company called EEG, and they do like drift rides and things like that. And they noticed I was good at talking with people and good with customers. And so they said, hey, you want to come over on this side of things? And so I worked my way all the way through all the jobs there. I was the head mechanic for them. I was a throw ride driver giving drift rides and Hellcats and Vipers and all that fun stuff, doing 1,000 people a day, just pull up, get in the car, do donuts, drop them off, and start all over again. But so that led me.
It's not a bad way to make a living.
It was good.
It's
it was
not,
good.
yeah.
You have just enough time to get out and get a sandwich that was prepared on a rotor, and then use the restroom and get back in.
That's amazing. Well, hey, it's sometimes it's quick between shows. I mean,
Yeah.
we're up to 3 shows a day here, so I get what you mean. I haven't had lunch yet, so I know.
Golly.
So I know what you're talking about. But see, what made you decide to come to the West Coast, though? Because it seemed like you had a really great gig out there. You were racing out there and working for movie companies. And I saw somewhere on IMDb you were on an episode of Star Trek.
Yep. So
How did that happen?
long story short, my dad and I and my older brother would sit around and talk about hypothetically how to build a warp core with Star Trek. We love the show, the science aspect of it. And you can't build a warp core, but you can go out and build a race engine, right? So that's kind of what drew us together. And I just happened to start getting connected with all of the people in those worlds. And by the time I was said and done, I was sitting in a green room with Chekhov to the left of me and an Andorian to the right. And but I am technically someone who, as a security officer, has saved Admiral Chekhov from annihilation in a starship. So
Were you one of the guys wearing the red shirts?
so different time period,
Come on.
but yes.
'Cause remember, everyone knows in Star Trek what happened to the guy with the red shirt. He always died in the episode.
Luckily, I went from a red shirt, and by the end of it, I get promoted, and I'm in a gold shirt. So.
So you did more than one episode.
All in one episode.
Oh, okay.
And they've gone on and done other episodes with it in that storyline, but the whole racing thing and the thrill ride stuff had taken me out. The thing about entertainment and racing as well, but if you can find security in every day, that you can have a full-time job doing it. The same with entertainment. You can work for 3 months, not work for 3 months.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very gig-based economy. And so when people ask when I do all of this stuff, like, how do you do it? And it's necessity. Like, I got to figure it out. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, whatever I can do to make a living and to support myself and my family and my loved ones, that's what I got to do. So to answer your question, why I ended up coming out to North Carolina, the company I was working for doing the drift rides said, hey, look, we're paying you hourly to do this stuff. You're working so much. You just need to come work full time at the company, and our shop's located in Concord, North Carolina. Okay, cool. The benefits, all of the things that come with it, I'll go do that. So packed up all my stuff, came to North Carolina. Started in Concord, there, working at that shop, doing that gig. And then I was just traveling so much. I was on the road all the time. I had an apartment with all my stuff in it, but never saw it. Mm-hmm. And as you do with racing and this type of lifestyle, I met a woman, thought I was in love, decided I was going to change things up. And because of my experience in the entertainment world, there was a college that was located in Winston-Salem called UNCSA. Mm-hmm. And it's an art college, one world-renowned art college, and they got a film school there. And I thought to myself, well, I never had a chance to go to college. Maybe I'll go to college and do something I already know. Mm-hmm. So I showed up, walked into the Welcome Center, and started talking to a lady and said, I don't mean to sound cocky, but with all that I've done already, I could probably teach classes here. And she goes, hold on one second. She writes down an email address, gives me the deal. I type the email address. It happens to be the associate dean of the film school. He says, come on out. I'll give you a tour. So I show up. He gives me a tour, shows me it's like a studio. They have multiple sound stages, all of that stuff there. It's like a little version of Hollywood.
Okay.
And by the time he's done, he goes, so do you want to go to school here, or do you want a job? And I said, well, with everything I'm doing, I have to survive. I have to make a living. Yeah. I can't. You're saying I can't work at all if I go to this school. So I'd have to say, I can't do that, but a job sounds nice. About that time, my soon-to-be boss walks out, and he looks over at her and says, hey, Steph, isn't there a job opening? And the rest is history. I became the production coordinator over there for about 4.5 years, putting out 200 and some odd student films a year, making sure the kids did it safely. And the guy who never went to college is at a college teaching kids how to work every day and get there on time and the ethics of it and how to work.
It's amazing how the universe works out that way, isn't it?
I guess at the end of the day, it's just experience, right? Like whatever your experience is, like for what they're doing, a lot of them hadn't had a job yet. They came straight out of high school, and so they just need to learn what it's about to work in teams and groups. And so when you're doing this on motorsports teams or on film sets, you got 60 people on a set, right? Like that's small film. And so in order to negotiate all of that and make sure everything's when the crisis happens, that you're able to put out the fires and you're able to stay on budget and save money and all of the things that go with it, get your shot list done. That's what I was showing the kids. So that worked out. And while I was doing that, backtrack a bit, while I was doing the drift ride stuff, I had met Jesse Awuji at one of the drift events, saw that how he presented himself to folks and asked him if he wanted to get into a stock car, and put him in contact with my folks on the West Coast so he can go stock car racing. And so all these years later, I'm at the college doing that thing, and Jesse calls and say, hey man, we started an Xfinity team with Emmett Smith. You want to come to work for me? Now I'm working on an Xfinity team. So I did that for 2.5 years or so. Did pretty much every job you can think of there. Started out sweeping floors, doing tire guy stuff. Up until towards the end there, I was running the shop and doing the assistant director of racing operations, getting the cars set up, loaded into the box and on their way. So that was a couple of years of doing that 6 days a week, 6.5 days a week sometimes. And that's one thing I think most people don't realize with motorsports is it's a grind. It's a lot of work. If you're trying, especially for the small teams, if you're trying to stay up on the schedule and keep things rolling, you're getting off the plane after that race and going into the shop to get the next car prepared because it's got to be out the door by Wednesday to go to the next racetrack over and over and over again. And so you got to give a lot of props across the board to the crews on this. And that's one thing that I've learned through my experience with putting in the hard work and the effort on the crew side of things, of how much you have to respect the people that are doing that job.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, because you've lived almost every aspect of it now. When you were out on the West Coast, was the goal to work in entertainment, or was the goal to go racing?
So always say that I'm a racer first. I come from a racer family. That's my life, right? That's my culture. I heard some guy named Paul Newman made enough money to go racing, and so I thought maybe I could figure that out. I fell in love with it. I love entertainment and making art and films and all of that. But as far as the goal goes, I can't say one or the other. It's just, what do I do next in order to make a paycheck? Because I don't have a fallback. I don't have a way to say that there's, any of my grandparents didn't have money to leave me, type of a thing. So at this point, it's on me. And so it's moved me around a bit, but I feel, though it's taking me a lot longer to get to the point that I'm at now, starting this truck this weekend, I'm grateful for the fact that I've lived all of those experiences, because as I'm going through it and I meet these people who've only done one thing their entire lives, that's all they know, right? So I can take things from other areas and aspects and add it into what I'm doing here at the moment. And whether it's not it's an audition for a major television show to go out and do that, and understanding what teamwork's like, sets are like, human behavior is like from working in racing, or the opposite. When I go out and I work on a race team, I understand how all of that dynamics work, because they're one and the same. Entertainment is entertainment, and groups of people working together to create some type of a performance, whether it's a race car on track or multiple race cars on track and announcers and all of that, or if it's a bunch of people trying to put film onto a nice 16 by 9 square, right? So I've looked at it as like, you've got car owners and producers, you've got drivers and actors, and then you've got your crew guys, which are equal to your gaffers and electric and art department.
Your production crew.
Yeah. It's the same idea.
Television, and I said this to our previous guest, television is very similar to racing in a way where you have to find the sponsor to put up the budget to be able to put the product out. You've got to get the right talent in place, which are like your drivers. You've got to get the right producer in place, which is like the car owner, and then produce something that people are going to take notice of and look at. So there's a lot of similarities between the two. Yep. Do you have you found any kind of way to kind of mesh the two of them?
Yes. So what takes me 2 hours to accomplish as far as like media for the racing side may take other people days. I got my new fire suit, went back after working on the truck all day at 12 in the morning and shot for an hour and edited for 45 minutes and came up with a promo for the race by myself. So that's the melding side. And then as far as, you talk about what my day-to-day is like out here, I have to put on multiple hats at multiple times. And I'm going from a job where I'm using my body, breaking my back as a crew member to try to get a car on track for a driver and a car owner, to being in the position of finding the sponsors, making sure that they're happy, making sure that they're getting what they would like out of the deal, because not everybody thinks that a name on a race car is worth money. But if you can do the B2B and make sure that they get something out of it that they need, that's a whole job in itself. And then you're doing that with, like, I was talking to Spencer Boyd the other day, and he's contacting ridiculous amounts of people a day. I mean, 150 people a day trying to
just cold contacting.
I think he has people that he knows through it. So for me, I do it over building relationships, right? I'm sure he's doing the same thing, and that's why he's so successful at what he's doing. I mean, he's got an operation that's running. He's got a team. It costs a lot of money to do this stuff at this level. On my side of things, I've got this one time trying to make it happen, and the leverage that I've applied is, okay, well, if I can make this happen, what good can I put into the world while doing it? And that's the Victory Junction aspect. And so that's the avenue I'm taking with it. And other people seem to notice it, and they say, okay, we want to do good too. And that is good for our company to do that. So let's jump on board. And that's what has got us here.
So you haven't tested with the truck yet, right?
Nope.
You haven't run any laps at North Wilkesboro or anything like that?
Other than on the sim.
Okay. What is the goal? Besides just make the race. The goal is to make the race, but if you do make the race, then what does the goal become?
So bring the truck home in one piece.
Okay.
It's their only truck right now, and they're building their team. The team's GMR. They're ex-pit crew members that, they're still pitting now, but they want to step up and they want to go to the next part of their life, and they got themselves a truck and they're trying to make something happen. So this is literally a testament of so many people in the sport helping out to try to make this little team happen, and the amount of hours that they're putting into it. So,
and that's got to put pressure on you too, because you know what they're all up against, and you have your part that you have to perform as well. How much pressure are you under with that?
So, in a confident way, not in a cocky way, I know if I have the right piece that I can put down a lap and get myself into the top 30. I know that if I go to any short track and I got a good equipment, I can put it in the top 3 at the end of the race. Like, I know what I'm doing when it comes to that. I have enough experience with it. The pressure of this for me comes on the sponsor side and the Victory Junction side. I want that to work out, and I want to be able to help in a way. And if there is a situation where that somehow doesn't happen because I don't get into the race, or it gets rained out, or whatever it is, that's what weighs heavy, right? So for them, we're racers. We all know what we signed up for. Like, we're going to put in the effort. We're going to fight to the last bit, and I'm going to give my best to them because I know how much they sacrifice to do it. And I think I want to say, at least from the nostalgia point of when you hear the guys from the past, there may have been more of that then than there is now. So now you get a lot of, if someone has the money to do it, they write a check, someone prepares a truck, they bring it to the track. Not to say the heart isn't there, because everybody wants to do well, but what GMR and all of the people involved in this now have that I see that's different is that they are doing everything they possibly can to succeed against enormous odds. And I would rather be associated with loyal underdogs than a group of competent jerks.
Interesting. The plan is to race this weekend, but if everything goes well, how many more races will you do throughout the course of the year?
We're going to find out. So we're in talks and seeing what we can make happen. There's plenty of other artists that can come on board, and plenty of other racetracks that are close to different areas that Park West works in. But it all comes down to what other sponsors can we have and find. And I think we're kind of at a precipice, right? Like, social media, the community, everybody's starting to take notice of what's going on and who we are. And so I feel like if everybody knows this is going to be a feat to make happen, and there's pessimists and there's optimists and there's people helping and there's people not helping, but I choose to focus on the good that's happening through it. And I feel like as it continues, you have to show up, you have to be there in order for anything to happen. And so
you have to nurture it.
Yeah,
you do with anything, and that's your racing program, finding a sponsor, this podcast. We have to nurture this. Putting out the social media and all of that just to get eyes on it, because that's the biggest thing nowadays is attention. Attention has become the new commodity, because we had a guy on the show here by the name of CJ Faze, and he said that exactly. He said, if you have attention, you will have money, because wherever the attention goes, that's where sponsors go, that's where eyes go, that's where money goes. So,
well, I think too, though, that you can get attention, but there's different ways to get attention, and I think the key to it is to have something of value that you're putting out into the world.
What about shopping around? I mean, I know you have this deal going with this team who are just starting out and everything, but if you, and I try to tell this to my nephew all the time who races, because he asks me all the time, can you get me in this ride, can you get me in that ride? And I tell him, find a sponsor, don't worry about getting a ride. I say, if you have a sponsor, you can go to whatever ride you want. So have you tried taking that route at all, with just going to a team with a sponsor, an established team, and saying, what can I get for this?
I think it's how much money do we got, right? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And that's, every racer will tell you that. Kyle Busch has talked about it often, about, if you got $3 million, you got a seat. That's the nature of the sport at the moment. I believe you were talking about it on an earlier show, where they were talking about, if a driver has talent, can he make his way in the sport in comparison to money? And it was said, well, somebody's got to pay for it.
Yeah, Bill Venturini.
Right.
And that is the truth. Somebody has to pay for it, because as much as we love the sport and we enjoy it, these teams are businesses, and they've got to pay the bills. They've got to keep the lights on. They've got to keep income coming in to keep the business going. So
the nature of that and how that culture is shifted is what I think is interesting. So if you pull back and you go back into, the good old days, as we call it, there was a different business practice with that. Your car owner would go out and search and try to find the sponsors and put whatever the best driver he possibly could in the car, which in the long run makes for a better show, because now you have better talent in the cars, and you got guys doing amazing things when they're on track, in comparison to as it's progressed. And those sponsors have, all of those corporations and businesses have been approached a million times at this point, and a lot of them are like, no, we're not interested in the motorsports thing anymore, because we tried it once, or so on and so forth. Now the car owners are like, well, I could focus on that, or I can focus on this person who can bring money, however they can bring it, and we'll make a business out of it. Okay, that's great. If that's how it is, then as soon as anyone finds the money, they have that opportunity to get into it. If that's the way that the game is played, then that's the way the game is played. But I think as far as how the show goes and what talent is on racetrack, that's the important part that we start to lack, because if you put just anybody in a car because they have the ability to pay for it, you're not getting the same product at the end of the day. And guys start now where other guys spent their entire careers to get to.
All right.
So
I know, because we're seeing now as the Truck Series and the ARCA Series becoming a feeder series, where back in the day, guys made their careers in ARCA cars and trucks. I mean, you saw guys like Frank Kimmel and Tim Steele and Bobby Dotter, Bill Venturini, they made their living in that world. But now it's a stepping stone series. We don't have those local heroes like we do. It's get to the top, which actually poses another question that we have for all of our guests. And being that you're not a teenage driver, we are closer in age than, say, these young kids that are coming up through the ranks right now. What is the big rush to get these kids to the top level of racing at such a young age?
That's a great question. I think there's a couple of factors to that. One being, this idea that if you start someone young, somehow they're going to be better because they get more hours in the car, they get more time and experience in it. At the same time, I see a lot of burnout with that. And by the time guys are 26, 27 years old, they don't want to do it anymore, because they've had all the hits, and they've spent too much time in the position that they're in. I think the old, that's not the right word, the past generation of drivers and people in the sport all have kids, and their kids want their kids to have those opportunities as well. Like when I was coming up, Jeff Gordon was around, like there was some 13-year-old kid driving a sprint car, and that was unheard of. Right. Mm-hmm. When I was running with 35, 40-year-old men who'd spent their entire lives doing what they do. And talk about getting schooled. You know, you learn a lot that way. Now you get to, we'll call it the rent-a-ride situation at racetracks, where you can, the parents have the money to do it, and they're putting their kids like through softball, but they're doing it with race cars. And it's way more expensive than those other sports, but if they have the means to do it, they can do it. And that also, if you look at how the degradation of the short track situation with audiences and how, people not coming out in the stands anymore, they don't have anybody to relate to. And the show no longer is in the, on the racetrack. Everything is put on for everybody who's in the garage area. It's a country club style situation, right? So the culture of racing and the camaraderie that you get in a family style sport, that's important too. I mean, I was a kid with my dad doing it, so I understand it. I was the kid that all those 40-year-old guys are like, God dang it, get out of here, putting kids in that young, I think I learned a lot. I consider myself a good driver, but if I would have waited a little bit, kind of like the Petty situation where he said, no, you're going to have to wait, and Lee said, you're going to have to wait until you're this old for Richard to get into it. I would have been more mature and built better for what I was getting myself into.
All right. It's one of those young and dumb kind of situations where you don't know. But for you now, what goes into a day for you? Is it every day in the shop? Is it every day on the computer looking for support? What is the thing that you have to accomplish most day to day for this truck to get to the track?
Well, after leaving my past position and go more focused on my dreams and what I need to accomplish instead of working to create other people's goals, I took a leap and I said, okay, what do I need to do? And with that, again, I go back to my days of old and say whatever I need to. So.
What was your past position that you were in?
At that time, I was the assistant director of racing operations for JIM, Jesse Wuji Motorsports.
Okay.
So they're figuring out what they have going on over there, and so when I stuck around as long as I could, but when it was time to say, okay, maybe you should go find other stuff because we're figuring out what we're doing, that was the time to take that leap. And so in doing so, I've focused on multiple different fronts in order to make a paycheck, to make things happen. I'm doing 3-day gigs on commercials and things like that, making as much money as I was making in a whole week at the past job. So that helps and leaves some time open to be able to focus on the racing things. It starts at 8 a.m. and even at times goes past 5:45, 6 o'clock on calling on business sides of things, and just nurturing everything that's going on now. So with the truck, there's nothing in me that says I can go do this and show up with my helmet in a bag, and not do anything. I don't know how other people do that. I get it. I'm exhausted. I've worked my butt off this past week, and I'm sure if I was fresh and just came from the hotel to get into a race car, I might be in a better spot. But I can't leave people hanging like that, and I can't and not as a control type of a thing. I just want to see it do the best it can. And if I can be that position of what I've learned in the past there, I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. So
this becomes your baby too. Essentially, this whole project becomes, like something that you've, started since birth and tried to, get it to taking the green.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a long time coming, and there's a lot of people that have said that, literally comments when the announcement went out today saying, This has been so long in the works, and we're so proud of you for it. It's a community. It's a village. There are a lot of people that have been hoping and praying this happens just as much as I have. And that's another thing that pushes me along to make sure that we do it the best that we possibly can with it, because the sky's really the limit on anything you set your mind to do. I think everybody has limitations on where they come from, a lot of times who they are, but I always feel like you can work past those things. It may take you longer, but you can get to where you need to go. And I think a lot of people are noticing it now, and they're saying that they're seeing what this story means, because instead of the people who can just go in and write a check and make the race team happen, this is a group of guys who are doing everything they possibly can against such crazy odds. And now they're going, okay, we're paying attention to this because we want to see something good happen here.
That is a huge goal. It is like it is a mountain to climb for you. It's been how long has it been since you've been in a seat or raced something?
A year and a half ago, I ran a late model. That's the thing but here's the thing: when you learn not having enough money to get into a seat every weekend, everybody wants to have like an elitist style view of why they're better than other people. And I do this every weekend, or I do this whatever. And that's what makes me so good at what I do. Growing up the way that I did, having weeks or months off between racing and then having to get back into it because we didn't have the money to do it, like it wires your brain in a way to figure things out very, very quickly. So I'm not worried one bit about that. If I get the practice time, which we get 50 minutes there, I'll be fine. Like it's not that big of a deal. And plus the amount of laps that I've turned in street cars with that type of stuff over the years, like it's just muscle memory at this point. So
let's get to the meat and potatoes of the show right now. Stories drive the show. What are some of the interesting stories that you've had from your racing career, from your acting career? I mean, I'm sure you've worked around celebrities and stuff, being on the West Coast. What are some of the most interesting stories that have gotten you to this point?
Oh goodness. So I think one of the funnest stories, being the guy, like people like to ask, like, so if you're going to go out there and race, like what type of racer are you? Are you going to be the type that if you get wrecked, you're going to get out and throw a rear bumper at somebody or do that type of thing? And it's not like the show of it all, right? I was running Orange Show, and my dad had been sick for a while, and he went through he went into surgery the night before, and he said, son, go race tonight. It's your night to go race. Go do it. So I get out there, and we're in the lead, and the white flag drops, and we're running a super late. And the second place car, he had never won either, but he's a 35, 40-year-old guy. He dove all four tires off into the dirt and clipped the left rear, turned me, went up. The Orange Show at that time had like a hill on the inside of it. Went up the hill, came back down. Gary Tamborelli hits me in the passenger door, and his bumper's sitting all the way inside of the car. So I'm flipping switches trying to get the thing to go, but we're stuck together. And finally, once I realized like I'm not going anywhere, I climb out of the car, and my helmet, all the radio wires get hooked on all the radio stuff, and so it gets hooked, and I take my helmet off, and out of character, I never throw my helmet. They're way too expensive, but I'm mad, so I throw it in the seat. And when that happens, the crowd goes, and I turn around, and on the other side of the track, the officials have him stopped, and it was like 0. And I was going to go murder this guy.
Blinders on, and that's the guy.
I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I would have done, because he's like 6'4", and I'm a 17-year-old kid at the time. But I start walking over there, and I zip the fire suit down, and I hear the muffled sound again, because they want me to go take care of business. I get about halfway through the track to the infield, and 2 big officials, like big guys, stop me, and sitting there with their arms like this, and one has a double-barrel shotgun tattoo on his arm, and they just shaking the head, no, kid, no.
Yeah.
and I'm frothing at the mouth. I'm so angry. This could have been our moment that we worked so hard for.
Right.
And I turn right and I walk my way, and my brother is standing at pit exit waiting for me because he can't go on track, but he's standing there to support me the best way he could. So he grabs me, takes me off all the way to the back, and I'm upset. I'm hyperventilating. I'm so angry that I can't do anything about this. He's just, just breathe. You're going to be okay. So I turn around and I come back, and they're bringing the car in on the wrecker, and all of the fans are at the pit gate, and they're shaking the pit gate. They're going to take this thing down. They want in. They want justice.
All in support of you.
Correct.
Oh, wow. It's got to be a good feeling, though.
Well, for me, at the time, it was scary. Like, I didn't know what, like, there's
cops. Why was it scary?
Well, because there's cops in my deal, right?
Yeah.
Remember, it's the Bowman Gray of the West. There's cops in my pit stall. There's cops in his. He's trying to get loaded up, and they're going to take down the pit gate, so they got to open it. They're trying to keep it closed so that they don't get in. But they finally open it, and they come pouring in, and all of them, you better get over there and take care of this. And I look, there's cops. I can't do anything about it.
Right.
Well, then I'm going to take care of it. And they're kicking his mirrors on his truck to get him as he's driving out, loading to get out of the deal. Like,
no shit.
Insane. Like, so essentially we created a riot, right? Like, and you only hear stories like that, like on the wrestling front, right? Like the entertainment side of things when it comes to it. And that's when it all clicked for me and understood the passion and the heart that and what the audience is putting into what's happening. And it goes both ways, right? Like, I'm feeding off of them and they're feeding off of what we're doing. And it creates this show, and so that was a wild night at Orange Show Speedway. And then you go from things like that to the professional world of motorsports, where you want to put on the show like that, but you got to be careful because of your sponsors and everybody who goes along with it. But there's always that aspect of it. So that's a fun story when it comes to the racing side of things.
Yeah. When you are in that top level, the 3 national series, I try to tell people you are under a microscope, and people will nitpick, complain to you, expect that you can do things that you can't, and it's incredibly frustrated. But on the other side of that coin, did you ever think maybe of taking your sponsorship money and your funding and then going, say, maybe like the ARCA route or Cars late model tour? Because obviously it's less money than trucks. Would it be a situation where you'd get more races to get more laps?
So you hit the nail on the head with that, and that's really the balance that people try to think about. I think when it comes to ARCA, you're still spending similar amounts of money to get the vehicle out there on the national level, especially if you're with the top teams. So if you say like Truck Series and an ARCA, you can get a back of the pack car for $20,000 a race, right? Then you're getting into mid-pack stuff at 50 something, and then the top of the line stuff 100 plus, right, for one race.
Right. It's Bill said it's over $1 million to run just one ARCA program for a year.
And when it comes down to that, you got to think of why. You've got a staff of people that all have to make a decent wage. You've got all of your expendables, tires, gas, things that you don't get back.
And the prices are going up for that. You know, tires are $1,000 a set, I think, now for ARCA. I mean, it's a huge tire bill.
Right. So when you look at those two deals, I was grateful that NASCAR looked at my resume and said, okay, you have the qualifications to be able to step up into the Truck Series, and we're going to start you out on mile and under, and we're going to see how you do there, but essentially hope that helps with sponsors, because with the ARCA side of things, the cost of everything, if I'm trying to get something rolling with that, but then the level of exposure and all of that, it becomes tougher. Now, when you go to...
Well, you can't run any short tracks, though. I mean, you can't run any super speedways. It's all short tracks. But if you had gone the ARCA route, wouldn't that been better? Because they do go to 1.5 miles, they go to 2 miles at Daytona and other tracks like that. Dude, would you ever think that maybe getting you prepared for those larger style tracks would have been better?
So I am qualified in ARCA to run 1.5 miles and under. That's how they worked that deal out. And with the Richard Petty Driving Space, I know it's not the same thing. They're school cars. But I spent a lot of time at California Speedway, Kansas, Daytona, Chicago. So I've run a lot of laps. Maybe not at full song in the pack, but I get the idea of it. And I think the difference between that comes down to like, what would I like to do for me as a driver? Because I would like to enjoy and see what it's like to run Daytona or go do Talladega or something like that. But as far as sponsors are concerned, that doesn't here nor there, right? So for me, it comes down to who can I find to help fund the program, and I don't care where I race. And so if we can do it on in a series that's getting the national television coverage and all of that, then I'm going to check there. Now, you mentioned the Cars Tour, a phenom in the short track world at the moment. All eyes are on the Cars Tour. It's amazing what those guys have been doing. Years back, probably about 6 years ago, I started a little Facebook page called Historic Short Track Road Trip. It's a mouthful, but you type it in and it'll pop up. 3 videos on there. I spent a bunch of money to do production on it. Between all 3 of them, there's 1 million views on it. Didn't spend $1 in advertising, all with the idea of supporting the short tracks. Because to me, it's not the bottom of the sport, it is the sport. All of the rest of this stuff has grown out of it and turned into what it's turned into. I call it the big show. But short tracks are what this sport is about. Right. All over this country.
Right. And they're all coming from somewhere. They're not just starting out and going to Daytona. Like, I remember saying to Matt Weaver that you have to look at short track racing all the way up the ladder to Cup in a way as a plant. So if you cut off the roots, the rest of the plant's going to die.
Right. And back in the day, that's all there was. And so your major superstars were running places like Hickory, right? And now as it's progressed, it's almost like those things have been left behind as far as the money that could be focused on that because of the attention and the television time and all of that aspect. So what Junior and Harvick and Burton and all of those guys are doing with it, it was just Marks, that's bringing a resurgence back to what makes this sport, keeps it alive. But now if you start looking at that, as soon as you start getting all of those factors involved, the more people want to do well there, the more money they're going to spend in those areas. And so if you go to any shop in the Mooresville area and you say, hey, you got a Cars Tour car, it's going to be $15,000 or $20,000 to go race it, right? So now what is the difference really? If we start looking at, we got composite bodies, we got a chassis, we got tires and wheels and an engine, fuel. They're all very similar stuff, just put together just a little bit different. And then it comes down to what cameras are on it and what racetracks you're running them at, right? So I have to weigh that out. Would I love to go run the Cars Tour? All day long, and I've been trying to get folks to come aboard on that, because if they come and say, okay, I can give you 15 and we'll go run a whole race, come on, let's do it. But in this particular situation, I couldn't pull together the people that I pulled together if it wasn't for the fact that I went with the Truck Series side of things. They wanted to see that. So we're going to go that route for now. But yeah, I all for it. It's an amazing thing that they're doing. I feel like I would do really well there. And I have one sponsor that I'm talking to that would like to focus just on an actual Bowman Gray style thing, which isn't the Cars Tour, but it's because it's located near Winston-Salem and Greensboro, and that place packs in 20,000 people on a Saturday night.
Is that this company in the Winston-Salem area?
Yep.
So they are. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the
So
other
what it would be for you to get behind the wheel of what, a modified or a late model or
late model.
late model? Okay.
Yeah. So I've always been a fender guy. I tried an IMCA modified on dirt years ago. I think it's amazing stuff. It's the precision that you have to have in them. They're fast. They're a wonderful show that they put on.
Oh, dirt teaches you a lot. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Dirt is, in my opinion, dirt is the best show in motorsports, especially sprint cars and all that. It's amazing.
Without a doubt.
But I sat.
In my opinion, Indy cars, sprint cars, and NASCAR should be on TV on Sundays. All Sundays. Yeah, because sprint car racing is, that is the top level of American open wheel racing before going on to that, that IndyCar level.
Yeah,
and sprint cars, you need big balls to drive those things.
Well, and you make sure that you have them tucked away because that drive shaft runs right between your legs.
Oh, I know.
Like, holy cow! Like the you want to talk about fortitude when it comes to driving a race car. That is the monster that you're getting, and the fact that when they flip and they fly through telephone poles and everything else, like. But man, what a show. And that the show all comes down to closing distance. You can be coming off of 2, half a straightaway back from the first place car and make that ground up in a straightaway with those cars.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Whereas on asphalt, we're battling for inches.
Right.
So it's a different show. I just think dirt is amazing, and the car control that you learn from it is amazing as well. That's not where I grew up. I grew up in a stock car world, and so that's what I'm good at. So I'm a short track stock car racer. That's what I know I could do.
One of the things about dirt racing that I learned real quick was you only have about 2 or 3 laps to figure out if this line's going to work for you, because then you got to move around and see what else is going to work for you and how the car is handling. That same mentality, marries itself over to pavement racing as well, because it all depends on your entry, how low or how high you are, things, how you run your line into that corner. And the one thing that is better about pavement is that line will be more consistent than on dirt, because the track's always changing, the groove's always widening out, and it's drying out.
And you don't have like holes that appear and things like that like
Ruts.
you would in dirt. But when it comes to stock cars now with this latest car, it's very aero dependent, right? So they've been doing this aero blocking thing where they're looking in the mirror their whole time when they're in first and trying to stay in front of the car that's behind them, because it makes the car push so much. So you talk about changing lines and switching things up. The past 3 races in the Cup Series have literally ended with guys just looking in their mirror trying to make sure that they can pick the right line going into the corner, with the second place car trying to get a nose out to get that advantage. And the guys that run dirt seem to be way better at doing it, because they're not stuck into running the consistent line over and over and over again, and maybe switching up as the race moves on and it rubbers up. But like you said, you got 3 or 4 laps. It's going to change. Figure it out.
That's it. Yeah, to figure it out. What is it that you have the most fun driving when you get to hop into something?
Ooh, that's a good question. I really like super lates.
Yeah.
Or pro late models out here.
Right.
Something about the power to weight ratio, how smooth you have to be with it in comparison. Limiteds are cool, but you got a Matic coming out of the corner, and it's a different way of driving.
You got to keep them wound up.
Yeah.
Okay. So for you, I mean, you appear to me like a blue collar guy. You showed up here in jeans and a t-shirt, dirt under your fingernails from working on the truck. What does a regular day consist of you? Is it every day in the shop working and turning wrenches? But because you did say you work in production as well, doing TV stuff. So. Are you going to television sets during the day and then working on the truck at night? What's a whole day like for you?
So it depends on what project is going on at the moment. If I've got 3 weeks that I'm working on a set, I'm going to be there for 3 weeks working on a set, making phone calls on the motorsports side to make sure that things are getting taken care of the way they need to. If the motorsports thing is popping off in the way that it needs to, then I'm over there working on the truck or whatever car it is and doing that side of the things. I've had a lot of offers to go work with different Xfinity teams and things like that, but right now I have to be really careful when it comes to how much money I'm making. So when it comes down to the economy of the sport, you can make a living and do all right, but I can make a substantial living going and doing the other stuff and have the time to be able to come back in on the motorsport side and figure out how to work it the best way possible. So my day-to-day, it changes so much, and you have to be fluid enough in this and to be able to say, okay, what's on the schedule for this day, this week? Next week it could be something completely different. I've done that most of my life with having one or two consistent go backs that I know there's going to be work there to do every couple of days or something like that. And that's what I've been doing in the motorsport. So I go help out some guys here and there. And then when I get a gig or an audition pops up on the acting side of things, and then I go and I'll shoot that. It's freedom, which...
Right. You're not going into an office every day.
Yeah. So that is something that I think holds a lot of value, because when you're stuck, like when I was doing the Xfinity thing for the 2.5 years, 6.5 days a week, there's no other life. Right. And I know guys who've done that for 35 years now. Right.
It's amazing. I give a lot of credit to those guys that can do it, because I did 20 years on the road, with NASCAR, the modifieds, K&N, and all that. And it is a grind. And then you look at it, because there are times where I will weigh the dollars, because there'll be a gig that they want me to go and do on a race weekend, and then there'll be a TV production gig that pays way more money. Or it'll be the same, and then I don't have to travel. I don't have to get on a plane. I don't have to worry about getting rained on or anything like that. Chasing, cancellations and such. So I get that part of it. When it comes to the production end of it, what is your specialty? Is it on air? Can you run camera? Like for me, I can write, shoot, produce. I do a little bit of editing. I'm not a fantastic editor, but I do that. Can assistant direct. I've done grip work. Like, what is the area that you're mostly hired for? What position?
So I'm usually on the coordinator side of things, or working really closer with a producer. I'm really good with teams and people, and making sure things get done in the way that they need to. But just like motorsports, I've done pretty much every role on there. There's certain people who they stick to their thing. If you're a cinematographer, you stick to cinematography. But I've camera operated. I go into things like, okay, where is the gap? What's needed in the moment? And can I utilize my skill in that gap so we can get the project done and make it happen? So like, I'm very visual. So editing side of things, sitting down, I could make what some people say is amazing, beautiful work when it comes to video, and I enjoy doing it. It's a little bit different type of a situation where you're sitting there by yourself, figuring out the best product to put out to it, and then working with people to fine tune it to what they're wanting to see happen. But when I take on the coordinating positions and the assistant producer, associate producer roles and things like that, that's more about just sticking to a timeline. AD stuff, like that's a stressful job. Like when you've got 30 shots to get off and you've got a time limit, and your director and your producer sitting over your shoulder, and you got to get camera in place and light set up and all of that, that's a lot. So but it's,
and stay on a schedule.
Yes, because every dollar costs you extra money.
Time is money.
Yep. So that's usually what I stick to. And then I found, just like in motorsports, I can make I have more opportunities to make money behind the camera, but I also have these opportunities in front of the camera. I just did an audition for a really big national television show. Cross your fingers, everything works out with that.
To be an actor or to work in production side of the show?
A co-star role.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do the acting side of things. I feel I'm okay at it. I'm pretty good at it. I enjoy the craft of it. But you need to go where opportunity is. So opportunity on the behind the scenes stuff to make money doing that presents itself more. And then being there, all of a sudden, hey, you'd be really good for this. Why don't we put you in here?
Did guys like Eric Norris kind of give you some inspiration, because he was obviously the son of Chuck Norris. He was a stuntman that also raced in the West Series. I forgot. There was another guy also. I forgot who his name was.
Stanton Barrett did it.
Stanton Barrett. He was another Hollywood stuntman that went racing on the weekends. Are you familiar with those guys?
Yeah.
Are they any type of inspiration to you, or do you chat with them at all? Or?
So Stanton actually qualified me at Richard Petty Driving Experience to do ride-alongs. So he watched over me and made sure that I was competent enough to do it. So I go way back with him on that side of things. My stuff when it comes to driving in film is mostly done like camera car work. The Russian arm, that big arm that sits on top of the
I know
camera.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that type of stuff. I can remember sitting in this the contraption that's not really a vehicle, but it has a motor and wheels, but it's all made out of the production tubing. Yeah. And the cinematographer sitting off to the side, and we were driving through a riverbed behind horses with cowboys on them. So like that style work, I'm good at. Very precise.
You're driving through a riverbed with a camera truck.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. Now I have so many questions. Number one, how do you keep the thing under control? Number two, do you drive it smooth enough to get the shot? Number three, are you getting beat up or beat around? And number four, did you knock your camera guy off the vehicle?
Well, luckily in this case, you've got horses that are clomping their way through it. So I'm crawling through the rocks and the water, doing my best not to create any splashes or jiggle anything around. He's got everything set up on a gimbal and all of the different things that he's got to help stabilize it. But I'm really good at being precise and being safe. And making my fiance, she always jokes about like, wait, you drive race cars? Like when I ride with you, you drive like a grandpa. Like
I save you racing for the track. That's
yeah.
What I know. I get it.
I would rather protect my cargo that's sitting next to me, and I've been through enough wrecks. I went through 6 feet of concrete wall and pushed the dirt back behind it. Like it.
Where was this?
Orange Show.
At Orange Show.
Orange Show.
Kidding. What happened?
Oh, so.
You get stuffed in the fence by somebody?
No. Built a pro stock. Went to a new shop that had opened up. They got a new lower control arm for it. They welded part of the bushing to the actual metal of the control arm. So every time it was flexing, instead of doing this, it started doing this.
Oh no!
So you take a ruler and you do that enough. What happens? It breaks. So I'm out there running, and the car's finding the right setup by itself because it's bending and moving its way around. And now it starts leaning over more and leaning over more. I went into turn 3, it broke, the big spring came out, went into the racetrack, turned the car up, went up the racetrack, it caught air, the entrance onto Orange Show where the wall divides.
Yeah, flattens out near the top.
Yeah.
Right.
Flew over that, went through the wall and pushed the dirt back behind it.
Oh my God!
So I woke up.
Did you get hurt? How bad did you get hurt?
Well, once I woke up, everything was fuzzy. The bottle broke out. The fire bottle broke out of its deal and went off. So the halon is all over. I can't breathe. There's just no oxygen.
Right, it takes the oxygen out of the air.
And everything's blurry. And I look to my left, and through the window net, there's a firefighter, a woman sitting there, and she says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Is the car okay?" And about that time, another firefighter sticks his head out from behind her and goes, "Son, you just had a fight with the wall, and the wall won." So
God,
I look.
Was that your hardest hit ever?
That was my hardest hit ever, and it took me the longest to recover.
Really?
So once I said my legs are tingling, they said, "Oh, we got to do something." So they cut the top of the car off of it. They pulled me out, put me on the stretcher, put the ring around my neck, duct taped my head in the helmet to the stretcher.
To the backboard, yeah.
So apparently, of course, I didn't see any of this, but my mom was in the stands, and so she used to like to place bets in the stands of who was going to win what and everything. So that was her fun time that she used to have in the deal. But when this happened, and if you ever are at Orange Show, the fences between the pit area and also the fence that on track, they're super tall. She was going to climb over it. She was going to get to her son any way that she possibly could. So the other friends and family pulled the bottom of the fence up for her to scurry through, and she was running on track. And my dad grabs her, stops her, and like let them do their job, right? And they brought me to the ambulance, and on the way to the ambulance, I heard somebody says, well, while you're at it, why don't you duct tape it over his eyes? And it sounded like my dad was kidding with me. So, and I can't see anything, so I flip off my dad like we all do. We're just fun. It's family, right? Well, it wasn't my dad. It was the head tech official, who is a very tall guy. Remember the guy I was telling you about that has the double barrel shotgun on his arm? Yeah, it was him. So, but they put me into the ambulance, pulled me out out of the racetrack, loaded me into another ambulance so that ambulance could go back in because the show must go on.
Right.
Went to the hospital. They were going to cut my suit off me. I wouldn't let them do it because I just spent $350 of my own money, and I wasn't going to have them ruin a suit. And my dad and my mom come in, and I said, they tried to cut my suit off of me, and I wouldn't let them. He said, yeah. And I started laughing. I said, they cut off my socks. He goes, what's so funny about that? I said, I was wearing your socks. Get out of the bed. So we got back in the car. Like my bell was rung. I don't really remember a lot of the rest of the night. But when we did get to the racetrack and they announced that I was okay, the crowd went wild. My dad used to say it was like, he used to love the Denver Broncos. He was like, the Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl when we showed back up. So I gained more fans out of that incident than I ever did winning races, doing any of that, because
can't win, be spectacular, right?
I guess. I mean, I had to explain to, there was like this little girl who was upset and she thought I was hurt. I had to explain to her that I was fine. I remember that part of it. Months afterwards, I would get gifts, die-cast cars that looked like my car, painted the same way, get well soon, things like that. I did check the mailbox multiple times a day.
Really?
It was a process to get back at it. Had to do the MRIs and all of the things that go with it. But all these years later, I've healed up really well with it. It happens if you take care of yourself. You get through that stuff. But I definitely understand it when people talk about concussions and the protocols and all this stuff with it. It's a serious thing that you have to pay attention to with it. But yeah, that was my hardest hit to date. But the little hits add up too. So you gotta take it for what it is. The big ones, it took a long time to recover with it, but those little ones, if you don't take care of yourself with it and make sure you're doing all of the right concussion protocols and things like that, you can find yourself in a tough spot with that too. So that's just the nature of the sport.
And recovery is so frustrating sometimes too, because you want to get back to that level or of performance that you were working, and then something comes along like a cramp or an injury that pops back up, and you have to go, I gotta ride this out so I'm 100% again.
You're never as grateful for the little things that you didn't pay attention to until you have those moments where you're recovering and you lack that one thing. I mean, you have your surgery, right?
The things you take I'm just 1 month out of surgery. I am recovering. I'm still recovering technically. The doctor said I couldn't do any work or anything, but at least this type of work, all I do is sit and talk. But yeah, I'm still recovering because I had work done on my stomach, trying to move, bend, stretch, laugh. Any of those things. Just even trying to reach for a bottle of water, it would hurt, and you don't really realize how many things you take for granted until you can't do them. I couldn't even reach down to pet my animals. And it was just like, wow, it's an eye-opening deal.
An interesting thing that I went through in life is, so when I was about 14 years old, I got diagnosed at that time with hypothyroidism. So it's something that most people have, that their thyroid's not working at full song. Little did I know until years and years later that I had what's called Hashimoto. So my body ate my thyroid. It's an autoimmune deal, so I don't have one. For the longest time in my life, and without knowing it, I was walking around life with giant weights on my ankles. I was tired. It was harder for me to do all the things I was doing. This is all during the time when I was racing as well, and I didn't know. And so you talk about perspective of having that skill or not. Like, once I finally got my medication the way that it needed to be, because they realized I just don't have an organ in my neck to begin with.
So wait, now I've heard of Hashimoto's. Is it syndrome or disease? Is it Hashimoto's?
So there's two different.
What is it? Like, what? Yeah, it's for the people, for the folks that are listening and don't know what it is.
So there's two different theories that the doctors tell me. You take it for whatever it is, because nobody really knows. One is that at some point I contracted a virus, and it was so close to my thyroid makeup that my body was attacking it and also attacking my thyroid at the same time, because I didn't know the difference. The other is that a vaccination of some sort was so close to it that it's what caused it, and it was so close in that time period as a 14-year-old that they would think that it would go that way. Nobody really knows. Doctors have different opinions on how it works. All I do know is the day that I finally got out to Charlotte and had really good health care, and the doctor said, hold on one second, walk with me to this other room, and he got an ultrasound machine and put it on my neck with the goo, and he looked to his assistant next to him, and he said to her, like, what do you notice? She goes, nothing. He goes, exactly, there's nothing there. So, like, literally the entire organ's gone. So your thyroid makes T4, T3, T2, T1, and another chemical that helps calcium get out of the blood. And most doctors for hypothyroidism will just prescribe you T4, and you're missing all the other stuff.
That's what, a testosterone supplement?
Nope, it's a thyroid hormone.
Oh, it's a thyroid. Okay.
Yeah, so it's your thyroid controls every organ in your body, and it sends out all of the those different hormones, and those are little cells going to all the different aspects. So one controls your heart and your lungs, all of that stuff. So this runs everything in you, the little bow tie in your neck, right? So not having that and only having one of those chemicals, some doctors believe that it has like a trickle-down effect of it'll turn from T4 to T3 to T2. But then there's T3 pooling and a bunch of other things that happen with that. So if you can get on like what they call like MP thyroid, or something that has the full spectrum of those thyroid medications, the first day that I took it, I was like, the weights were lifted. I woke up for the first time. Now,
what is it? Is it just, are you in pain? Is it just run down energy, or what are the symptoms of it?
So at the worst of it.
And how does it, and here's the other thing, how does it affect your day-to-day life, and how does it affect your racing?
As of now, I'm perfectly fine. Like, I was able to find the right dosage of medication that it's like, it doesn't matter. Now I'm stuck on the medication for the rest of my life. I have to take it every day. When I wake up in the morning, I don't wake up like completely unless I take my medication, and then I can go about my day. That's it. But back in the day, at the worst times of it, I was lethargic, couldn't get out of bed, muscle aches, depression, loss of hair, all of the things that are horrible things that happen. You can get to the point where, for me, if I don't have the medication at all, within a month, I'll be in a coma.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding. So do you have to let the EMTs and NASCAR know what your condition is and all of that?
Yep. So I just went through all of my medical stuff with it, and it's a normal thing. It's nothing that would make anybody get worried about anything. There's no giant spikes or moments where something bad could happen. It's just, it's a deal that you have to take every morning to do it. But they know about it.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, we have in the last couple of years seen drivers with different conditions. That Ryan Reed had diabetes. Trevor Bayne has slight MS, I think it is.
Didn't somebody had like thrombosis of some sort?
I think that was Matt Tifft had some sort of brain thing going on, but they all come back to race, which has got to be a satisfying feeling too, because you get rid of all of that medical stuff, or you forget about it so you can focus on racing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's once you have everything set the way, it's a blessing and a curse for me. I'll put it that way, because instead of like, now that I know that that's what's wrong with me, I can manage it and I can take care of it, and I have to do it for the rest of my life. But that keeps me in an area of fitness that I wouldn't have been if I wasn't paying attention to my life.
So you have to exercise and keep up with yourself and all that.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I got you. Listen, I'm a firm believer in exercising. I mean, I'm going to be 50 years old this year, and I try to get to the gym 3-4 days a week because, as Clint Eastwood said, you don't want to let the old man in. And
Yeah.
And here I am at 50, and I want to be able to go till I'm 100.
Well, so I just turned 42, and I'm an old man in this sport compared to the young kids in it, right? But in contrast to that, I'm in the best shape that I've ever been in my life, because have been able to take care of myself, and I know what's going on with my body. Whereas in the past, when I was younger, I didn't know. I was oblivious to the situation, and different doctors didn't diagnose properly and everything else. So like, when I look at it now, like, I have a better shot now than I ever did at any other point to be able to do the physical exertion that you need in a race car. And for, we know what it's like to be in a race car and how hard that is to do. A lot of people out there don't, and that's just because they think of what it's like to drive the street car down the street.
Right. Everyone goes, "Oh, you're just turning left." It's
Yeah,
like,
no.
It's a lot harder than that.
I've always put it like this: go stand in a sauna, get on a recruitment bike. So you're riding the bike in a sauna, fully sweated up. You're playing chess, and someone's punching you in the face.
Right. Yeah.
That's what driving a stock car is like.
Yeah.
It's a mental and physical game that is the toughest thing that I've ever experienced in life. The hits that you take are extremely hard, far more than what a football player takes. The G's that come with it. It is a hard thing to do, and the only way that somebody can understand that is if that somehow they are put into that situation. So I've actually done with guys at the gym. I say, okay, this is my regimen of what I do at the gym to work out. Is I take the 25-pound weight, hold it in front of you like this, and I want you to do this 50 times.
The plate or the dumbbells?
The plate.
Yeah, you take the plate. You
I
gotta
do the
spin
plate.
it, right?
I spin it.
Oh, that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And that they get a quarter of the way through it and start going, wow. Like, yeah, that's what you're doing. Now with our legs, you're pushing on those springs. They ain't light. That clutch ain't light.
Nope.
So like my calves are nicely defined because of that.
I know those clutch levers are hard. Those 10,000 RPM clutches and up, and it's crazy. There have been a lot of guys over the years that have been able to intertwine production and racing. Like we were talking about Eric Norris, Stanton Barrett. Do you know Tony Hunt also?
Yep.
Tony Hunt, sprint car driver, and those are awesome vehicles.
He did Ferrari.
He did he did Ferrari, and then he also did Ford versus Ferrari as, the stunt driver for the movies. You ever thought about trying to go that route? Because Tony he's doing incredible stuff on those sets, and he's traveling the world and doing all that stuff.
And I try not to be a jealous person, but when I see him in those vintage cars doing what he does on his Facebook pages, I'm like, man, wouldn't that be amazing to do?
I want to get him out here on the show and just have him talk to us about doing those races.
I mean, that's that job is very specific and tough thing to do. To the precision that you have to have, especially when it comes to where they place cameras. You have equipment and people's lives in your hand if you mess up, and
your own life too.
That as well.
Yeah.
So as far as me doing that side of things, the opportunity just never appeared. Like, I've done the camera car side of things, and I'm good on that end. If it was to come up, I'd love to try it out with all my years of doing the precision driving and drift rides and all of that stuff at the Chrysler Proving Grounds and places like that. I think I would be good at it, but I also feel like my position as my character in life. Like, since I'm an actor as well, like maybe I'm just the guy who does my own stunts. And when those opportunities come up, that'd be great too, because I'm like, I feel like I can put in a decent performance as well as do that side of things. So it's like the double, triple threat type of an idea.
And the other thing too that we're also just learning about you too is that you've got a lot of laps in road course racing.
Yep.
Like you're very versed in road course stuff.
So at this point, I've run pretty much every major road course in the country. Watkins Glen, Road Atlanta, VIR, Circuits of the Americas. It's all just because of the production car job that I did for so long with the high end, like ACR, Vipers, and Hellcats, and all that fun stuff. It just brought us to all these different places. And with the track experience program, where I was teaching people, groups of people, how to get around the racetrack, and we did like lead follow deals, and I taught classes with it. And I mean, that's how I ended up getting the nickname. Everybody calls me Showtime now. So like they had to name the two different classes. They had to give them nicknames. And so the coach on one class had his nickname, and then the manager came over and he says, "What's your nickname?" I said, "I don't know." And he goes, "Showtime." And it stuck. So all of those guests still on the internet, that's the nickname that they gave me. So that's how that kind of stuck. But yeah, the road course stuff is cool. Like the Chrysler Proving Ground was a great experience there too.
Yeah. To do road course racing, man, you think truck racing or the oval track racing is expensive? Road course racing is off the chain, man.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, when I heard what some of these guys are paying to buy rides and stuff in road course racing, holy cow. I mean, it's almost double.
Well, I mean, if you want to go race a spaceship, I mean, that's what it's going to cost.
They are spaceships, yeah.
But so my life has been based on like, what opportunities can I get and where. I didn't have to pay any money to go do the things I did. I got paid to do it.
Which is rare. Like, you got to go do that stuff and earn a paycheck at the end of the day. Some people would pay to do that stuff.
And that's exactly what I found myself in life, being the person who's putting on the party or event, not the person attending. Mm-hmm. So I work those deals. And so that's my lot in life. It's not a bad thing. It's a lot of work. It's hard to do. Like those ride and drive programs, and to do that, it's a long day. 14-hour days, set up cones on the racetracks or full on race courses. We completely closed off Treasure Island in San Francisco for a Maxim Super Bowl party, put up the water barriers and everything else, and rolled up and picked up a guest and took them for a drift ride around the island and brought them back.
Wow.
Yeah.
No
So,
kidding.
but that type of work, it's just like any of this stuff. It takes a lot of time and effort to do. You get paid for it, and you get to have the experience. And that for me is the most important thing in life. Like, experience everything you possibly can, because that's going to make you a well-rounded person. When you're sitting on your deathbed and you say, "Man, I should have done this," or maybe I could have tried that. Well, why not try now while you have the chance? So.
Right. You say that way you won't have the regrets, and at least you can say that you did it. We are getting near the end of the show, but from here, where do you go from here? When you leave the studio here, you going back to the shop to keep working on the truck? Oh, so you're not even off the clock. You're still on the clock, and you're going back to work on the truck.
I'm going back to work on the truck. I've got a great group of guys that are busting their butts to get that thing ready. I broke away to be able to come over here and talk about all the great things that are going on with GMR, with Victory Junction, with Park West, with all of the people that are helping.
Yeah, definitely plug your sponsors. That's why we're here, man. Tell us, who they are, where we can find them, where we can find you on the internet. Let's hear all that.
Okay, cool. So right now, the people that are coming together to do this stuff, I definitely have to mention Pat Cole at Elevated Performance. He's has a pit school, or pit training school. That's the best way to put it. So if you want to get into motorsports and you want to learn how to get behind a pit gun, jump over a wall, put gas into a truck and everything else, you can go to him. He'll train you up, and then he can put you on the different teams and be able to farm you out that way. And what he has going on over there is amazing and very unique in the sport. He's taking care of a lot of people. He's taking care of us to make sure that we can make all of this stuff happen, and just having the right people around you with that. So I gotta definitely drop his name with it. GMR, John Vandal and Jeremy Gator. Everybody just calls him Gator. Two pit crew guys that are moving up in the world and taking a giant risk to be able to become something
big risk,
a bit, something more than what they were used to doing, and I can't thank them enough for it. All of the other shops and people, which I won't say their names because they all have alliances, but that have given us little things and parts and helped us get to where we're going. This has literally been an entire sport effort to try to make this thing happen. People that we've all worked with for years who've seen us bust our butts, they want to see us try to make this thing happen. So I want to thank all of them. Of course, Low Country Coins for coming aboard for this race. Without them, we wouldn't have been anywhere near the amount of money that we needed to make this stuff happen. And then of course, Park West, that relationship is going to do so much for Victory Junction, and super stoked about that. So as far as all of this stuff goes, I leave here. I'm going to be working. I'm going to try not to burn the midnight oil. I got to leave it up to them too. I got to get some rest so that I can go out, and we got 50-minute practice. And if rain comes in, there might even be qualifying on the same day. So
you got to get it in the show.
Got to get it in the show. That's the top 30, and we'll see. By the time this thing comes out, we'll see where we ended up. At the very end of the day, it's a valiant effort. Mm-hmm. If we make it, awesome. If something doesn't happen, at least we were able to get the right people connected with the charities and get the exposure that we need to, and we'll figure it out and do it again another time.
Well, I want to wish you good luck this weekend. I hope you make it into the show. We hope to see you make more truck races later this season, and we're definitely going to be pulling for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me here, man.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. Love the stories. Everything was great. Kyle Whisner, he joins us in the studio. It was great to have him on. We're going to keep an eye on him in the Truck Series in the months to come. So I want to thank him for joining us, and we also want to thank you for joining us. And remember to follow us on our social media channels, on Facebook and on YouTube at The Derek Perniciglio Show. You can also keep up with us on Instagram, on Twitter, and on TikTok at Real DP Show. You can check out all the clips that we have there. So for Kyle Whisner, I'm Derek Perniciglio saying thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you the next time. Bye.